All right, so when we look at, just a review before we jump into graphing quadratics, our parent function, that's linear. This is that f of x equals x, or remember f of x is the same as y. So if we were to graph y equals x in Desmos, it's going to give us a line. Let's see what that looks like. What's the domain and the range of this graph? So domain, all real numbers, range, all real numbers. So we're going to take what we know about that stuff and we're going to apply it to what we call a quadratic. So the quadratic equation is going to have a degree of 2. If you remember what degree is, that is going to be highest exponent. And that is actually those trinomials that we've been working with. So this is going to be that ax squared plus bx plus c. This is actually we call it a trinomial. We also call it a quadratic because it has an exponent. The highest exponent is 2. Okay, and that's what you were using with your box and such. The shape of a quadratic equation is what we call a parabola. And when we spell parabola, it kind of looks like a disease. Parabola. And you know I'm not great at spelling, so that's how I remember it. And that just means that it is going to be a U shape. Okay, and we're going to look at that. So it's either going to look like this or like this. The equation for the quadratic parent function, you can use f of x or you can use y, is just x squared. Just x squared. We're going to make a table in Desmos, and then we're going to create that graph. So we're at -2 was at -4. -1 is at -2. I'm sorry, not negative. These are positive. I apologize. +4, +2, 0, 2, and 4. You notice anything about that? So they're all of these numbers are squared to get y. But I want you to also notice that we've got some repeating things happening here, right? So if it's a U shape, okay, it's gonna have that same y value because if it went down and then it went back up. And those are actually what we call buddy points. And then you've got this one that doesn't have a friend. It's a special friend. It's all by itself, and that's going to be what we call the vertex. And we're going to talk about where that is on the graph, okay? So we're going to take these dots over here on our graph, and we're going to put them on here. So we're at 0, 0, +1, +1, -1, -1. There's your buddy points. +2, +4, -2, -4. Again, those are our buddy points. They're right across from each other. If we drew our arrows, there's our U shape, and that is going to be our parabola. So when we look at this, let's talk about some of this vocabulary, and some of it you already know. Okay, let's start with this one. Let's start with the y-intercept. What is the y-intercept? What happens at the y-intercept? Where we what? It is, in this case, it is 0, 0. It's where we cross the y-axis, right? So what about the x-intercept? It does also happen to be 0, 0 here. And this is where we cross the x-axis. Now, when we did linear equations way back, we did have another word for x-intercept. Okay, so we're going to talk about that right now, and we have some other words as well. So x-intercept, and the other word we used to use was 0. Okay, I'm going to also tell you that we're going to use the word root in the word solution. Those 4 words are synonyms, right? They different words that mean the same thing. So you'll hear me say root or solution or 0 or x-intercept, and it's all the same thing. It's all x-intercept. On this, we also have, I want you to notice this is going to be where our graph changes direction. Okay, so that is our vertex. It happens to all be 0, 0 on the parent function. So let's make a note. This is where our graph changes direction. Your vertex on the table does not have a buddy point. It's all by itself. Okay? And within the vertex family, we have a min or a max. So I want you to look. That vertex is at the bottom of the quadratic. So do you think we call that a minimum or a maximum? That is a minimum. Yes, it is at the bottom. Okay? So don't just tell me vertex. Be specific. Tell me minimum or maximum. Okay? And these are going to, this and the vertex, because that's where it changes direction, this is going to be the highest or lowest point on the graph. And when they ask you about the min or the max value, right, this is going to be just your minimum or your maximum y value, which in this case is just 0. And it's not x equals 0 or y equals 0. It's just going to be that number. The last one is axis of symmetry. So in elementary school, in art, you probably learned how to, like you would draw with chalk or you would draw with pencil. And you would fold the paper and rub it, and it would make a mirror image on the other side, right? So I want you to see where I drew this red line. That is our axis of symmetry. It cuts our parabola in half. Okay? And this is an equation. This is a vertical line. Remember, vertical lines are x equals always, and it's going to be x equals 0. Okay, and we get that actually from the vertex. Okay, whatever the x is on the vertex, I'm going to talk about this hk, and the min or the max value is also from the vertex. Be aware parabolas can open up or down. We drew that picture a minute ago. If a parabola opens up, it has a positive a, right? The a is the number in front of the x squared. And if it opens down, it has a negative a. Again, that's your a in the ax squared. The blank of the parabola is the highest or the lowest point, the vertex. We talked about that not having a buddy point. And the 0 is where it crosses the x-axis, right? So this is just putting in sentences what we already did. 0 is called the x-intercept, the root, or the solution. Be aware when we talk about that, sometimes you have 2 of them, sometimes you have 1, sometimes you have none, okay? Those are the different numbers you could have. The axis of symmetry divides the parabola in half. And this is always x equals some number. You got to put the x equals. The y-intercept of the parabola is where the graph crosses the y-axis. Okay? So here we have a picture. We're going to label that. All right, here we go. Let's start over here, top left. What is that dotted line called? Axis of symmetry. Good. Axis of symmetry, and I want you to write x equals h. Trust me, you'll figure out what h is in a minute. Okay, let's go down. What is this next one on the left? What is this pointing at? That is your y-intercept. Remember, when you write your y-intercept, it needs to be 0 and whatever that number is. I'm going to actually put c here because when we do ax squared plus bx plus c, this c is always your y-intercept. Axis of symmetry. Okay, let's go around. So what is this on the bottom right? That's where we change direction. What is that called? The vertex. Does it happen to be a minimum or a maximum vertex? It happens to be a minimum, okay? This is a minimum vertex. Be specific. And I'm going to have you write HK, okay? And then this last piece, top right, X-intercept, give me another word. Roots, give me another word. Solutions, give me another word. 0, good. And those are always going to be written, whatever that X number is, and then the 0. Remember, you can have 2, you can have 1, you can have none. Here's our f of x equals x, and we're going to plug that in so we can see what changes. Think about domain. Domain is x, domain is y. What do we remember? Is domain x or y? Domain is x, range is y. But does it stop? Do we have any dots? Or does it just keep going? When it keeps going, what do we write? Think about Buzz Lightyear, right? He just keeps going to infinity and beyond. So all real numbers for both of these. It won't always be all real numbers, but if we have dots, it'll change. So when we make the table, we're going to take that and then we can create our graph on our paper.